All right, so it is my pleasure to have a special guest here. For the folks who don't know, about a little over a year ago or so, I did a video on an item that was stolen off of my porch that belonged to a sailor who had been on the USS Laffy, which folks should know by now was became the ship that would not die, taking a total of at least 5 kamikazes and multiple bomb hits off of Okinawa. And I put the video out just as a little bit of a tribute and a little investigation of the sailor that it belonged to, because it did have a name in there. And on the listing on eBay, mercifully, I saved the photos and put the video out, and it got some reception from folks I know. And then just around Christmas time of 2020, I got a message on the comment section, and it is the gentleman that I'm talking to now. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, my name is actually John Kycia, and my father was Edward Kycia, otherwise known as Eddie Kycia, on your YouTube video.
Yep. And how did you come across the video?
You know, it's funny. I will occasionally search YouTube for information on the USS Laffy, which was my dad's ship. And I'll go to Patriots Point's website where the boat now is enshrined and just look up information on it. And like you said, one day around Christmas time, what popped up, blew my mind, was a little video on with my dad's name. And as I watched it, I saw what was a certificate, apparently, of crossing the equator with the name Eddie Kycia on it. And it was like, oh my God, this is this is too strange. Referencing the Laffy, I said, this is my dad. He's not forgotten.
Yeah.
As it was stated. So we made contact. Yeah.
Yeah. And now the interesting part is that I made the video thinking that maybe this was the only thing that this sailor had. Ended up on eBay, and you apparently that is not the case. Is that correct?
That is very correct. Yeah. No, my dad was quite a saver of things, and throughout the years, he would share some things with us. He had saved his uniforms. He had his formals.
Mm-hmm.
He had several of his white hats, the old traditional sailor hats that
Mm-hmm.
my brother and I used to wear as kids. He had, I think he had 2 or 3 of his original peacoats. Some other miscellaneous things, belts, Navy belts, and they were all part of our lives growing up. We were very aware of the items,
Right.
but and as I said, he did have one real keepsake that I really, it's not mine, but I cherish it. My mother still has it. He was an original plank owner when the Laffy was put into service out of Bath, Maine, sometime around 1944, I believe. He was the first crew.
Right.
And he was given an honorary plank, and he has this beautiful certificate with his name on it that's framed in my mother's den.
Nice.
So so again, we have not obviously forgotten Eddie Kycia. He's been fully around. Nice.
Yeah, very glad to hear. It's funny. I have a typo plank owner certificate for it's a Cleveland class light cruiser, and it's a beautiful certificate. It's not filled out. It's I don't even think it's signed by the commanding officer like ahead of time, because the printer didn't. They're amazing certificates. The printer got the ship's hull number wrong by 1 digit. So I have this pristine typo, and I love all of the regalia and the what is it they call the illustration style of that time. I love it.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
So one of the things that was interesting, there's a lot that goes on with this, but so the item that I got had the suede photo album for the Laffy with the certificate of Neptune, signed by your dad. He had filled it out, and that is, you said, that's his handwriting.
Yeah, he actually, I think it says Eddie, E-D-D-I-E, Kycia.
Yeah.
And he may have gone by that on the ship. I mean, he was always when I grew up, he was Ed to his friends.
Right.
Never Edward, but Ed. My brother, who's not a junior, but he's named after my dad, was, when we were kids, he was Eddie.
Gotcha.
But my dad was never, that I knew of, referred to as Eddie, unless, again, maybe that was his name on board.
Could be.
But yeah, so the certificate was filled in, it looks like, by him. So I don't know if the sailors pre-filled those with the assumption that they were heading for the equator.
Right.
And
because
you went along with that.
You said that he said he never crossed the line.
Yes, again, to my recollection, when we talked about these things, I remember there was a ceremony on ship. So I said to my dad one time, "Did you go through that?" Because I know they do some kind of wacky stuff.
Yeah, it's a total hazing ritual.
Yeah, it's a hazing, and I swear that he had said they were headed to the equator, and then something happened, and they turned. They didn't go across.
Right.
Which maybe makes some sense, and that certificate was never really formalized, and there was just a surplus of them around, and somehow his fortunately got in your hands.
Right. Well, the image of it did anyway. Unfortunately, the item never did. But and one of the other item that was in that auction that didn't make it to me was a Blue Star flag that they would give to the families, or the families could order. I'm not sure exactly the background on exactly how a family would procure those. And that really, when the item got stolen, that really upset me, because again, here's this memento of a family in a sailor's service, and for all I know, it ends up in a trash can somewhere, because like I've said, it's not a pair of Adidas, it's not a laptop, it's not a new cell phone that somebody can pawn. But you said your mom has at least one of those?
Yeah, she actually commented the other day that she has one with my father's other items. So again, that folder, or that portfolio that you got with the Hawaii wording on it may have contained that Blue Star banner in the plank owner certificate. But again, maybe they were extras. Maybe there was something that was just floating around at some Army Navy surplus store, and someone put a package together. But yeah, my mother has the one that my grandparents actually hung in their house in Hartford, Connecticut, while my dad was in service. So we have the original one.
Nice.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. So what did your dad, will move to the actual service on the Laffy? I had not known. I had just looked up. I didn't know that the Laffy actually took part in shore bombardment on D-Day.
I did not. Yeah, I didn't know that.
She served. Apparently, escort duty was her first in the Atlantic. Was her first assignment, and then she was over there, and they apparently said, "Yeah, go in. We need you to just shoot at some stuff on land." And apparently, the gunnery crews of the other destroyers at D-Day expended 300 to 400 rounds per ship, and the Laffy poured in over 1,000.
Wow.
And then they got transferred over to the Pacific and ended up at Radar Station, or Picket Station 1 off of Okinawa. And in our previous conversation, I noted, and I had found out after making the video, that the ship that the Laffy relieved at Picket Station 1 was my dad's destroyer, the J. William Ditter. So our paths have crossed in the past in a way. But I know, like we've discussed, my dad, he would occasionally talk about stuff, and I know that your dad was of a similar mindset of not really talking about it. But what did he tell you about that day and his experience?
Yeah, and again, I think you would hit the nail on the head. A lot of these guys came back, and they did not share a lot of information. They were pretty quiet about it. I think there was humility, and they were humble in what they did, and they just went on with their lives. But he would share some stories about non-combat issues, the food, how nice it was to be in the Navy, where two of his brothers were in the Army, and they would be eating K rations in a foxhole. My dad always kind of laughed. Yeah, I always had scrambled eggs for breakfast, and a nice meal for lunch and for dinner on the ship. The food was always good. He loved to eat, but those were not non-combat stories. But he did share stories with us throughout the years of when they were at Picket Station 1 in Okinawa. When the kamikazes were coming, he had to step away from his regular duties as a torpedo man and help on one of the guns. And I guess there were three. He and two other shipmates that were normally assigned to these guns were at that station, and there was a plane coming in, and my father or one of the other three guys said, "That looks like a Jap plane." And one of the gunmates said, "No, it's an American plane. Don't worry about it." And they said, "No, that's a Jap plane." My father ran with the other guys away.
Right.
And sure enough, it was the kamikaze, and it came in and it destroyed that. It was almost a rear-mounted gun.
Right.
And those guys were killed.
Yep.
So my father was thrown on the deck. He hurt his back, but had they not ran from that spot, I wouldn't be here today talking to him.
Right. Exactly. And fast forward a little bit, you had a story about meeting the commander of the Laffy.
Admiral Beckton. He was back in somewhere around 1975, 1974 maybe. My dad, every year they had a ship reunion where they would get together. The Laffey Association would get together in different spots in the country. In this one year, and he would usually go with my mother, and they would meet up with some of his old shipmates.
Right.
But this one particular year, it was in Washington, D.C. So, my parents thought they would make a family trip. And we would all drive down to D.C. from Connecticut, do some sightseeing, and go to the reunion itself. But the big ticket item was that the Laffy was actually up the Potomac, tied off. I don't know if it was one of the naval bases up there or a shipyard for some repairs, but it was still in service at the time. And we actually got to take a ride down the Potomac River under its own power and meet some of the crew. And Admiral Beckton, who was at the time Captain Beckton, when my dad was on board, was there. He used to come to all the reunions, and we were able to shake his hand, meet him. And my dad was able to show us, where he slept down below.
That's amazing.
And as it's shocking when you see how little those areas were as far as room. But we got to tour the ship while it was underway.
That's amazing.
I'll never forget it.
And you said Commander Beckton made an impression. He was.
Again, I'm not sure. Other than I know he always had the comment, I guess, this ship won't go down as long as one gun is still firing.
Right.
But he had made a real lasting impression, I think, on us as young kids, seeing someone that mingled with the crew. They were all retired or out of duty, but the guys that were my father's rank, he wasn't an officer, he was an enlisted guy. The respect they had still for him that many years later, it was just almost a love of almost like a father figure to him. And the way he commanded that ship during that time, he probably saved all their lives as well.
Yeah. And so after I had made the video, I had tried to do some research and reach out. I contacted the Laffey Survivors Association, and we've discussed this. One of the volunteers there actually had your mom's phone number, tried to call her, had me on, literally holding two phones up, I think is what he was doing. We did not get through to her. And then the video languishes for a while, and here we are. And I'm hoping at some point you will have the time to get some photos of some of the memorabilia, etc. And we'll be able to put that in on the video that is going with the audio soundtrack that we're recording right now.
I'd be happy to do that.
Is there... go ahead.
One thing I'd like to add is, again, just kind of to recognize my dad. in what he had been awarded.
Oh, yeah.
He was awarded the Combat Action Ribbon, the Presidential Unicitation, the American Theater Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, and the Philippines Liberation Ribbon. So, he was what I would really consider a combat veteran, a decorated veteran. A lot of veterans, don't see action, and they're blessed for that. But the guys that did put in a whole other level, I think, a higher level of service, and the fact that the line between, I think, life and death was so thin.
Yep.
That again, we're just that you and I are talking. Both our fathers could have been annihilated in any one of those attacks, and we would not have what we have today.
Yeah, and I believe about a month later, when my dad's ship was at Picket Station 1, she took 2 kamikazes. The first one passed through the stacks, and one wing clipped, and I don't know if it was clipped one of the stacks, and my dad was on the signalman's post on the forward stack. The second plane hit amidships, and the one of the stories about that I had heard from my dad is that either the first plane or the second plane killed the guys standing on either side of him.
Yeah.
And that definitely illustrates your point on what a fine line it is between who gets to go home and who doesn't. And it was very nice in the initial research that I had done on your father for the video that he survived the war, and I wasn't looking at possibly having lost this piece of someone's life that didn't make it back, and I'm glad the video found you.
Yeah, I am too. I really am. I mean, this is something that, again, that hopefully once it's up on the internet, this will be there for, perpetuity, and maybe my grandchildren will stumble on it someday, or their children. So
I will definitely make sure to put a copy somewhere that you can get it and download it and have it. And then that way, even should YouTube or whatever fold up their financial tents, you'll have a copy of the video.
Great, that'd be great. The only other thing I would add, just in the end, I think I mentioned this to you last time.
Mm-hmm.
The Navy and tattoos were a big thing, and my father, 18 years old, out of Hartford, Connecticut, first stop was in Boston on the way, and he got a tattoo on his left or right forearm of a ship. And then when he was in Hawaii, he got a tattoo on the other arm of it, like an anchor with chain, and a typical Navy tattoo. But they were beautiful and colorful at the time. And he would write home to my grandparents. There was no obviously email or anything like that. But my grandparents were from Poland, and my grandfather spoke English fairly well, but my grandmother did not at that time. And even in later years, she only had a limited ability of speaking English. But my father had written that he had both arms tattooed. And my younger uncle, who was not in the service yet at that time, read the letter to my grandparents. And I guess my grandmother interpreted tattooing being my father got his arms blown off. and she started crying. She was really upset. And so my uncle had to, again, explain to her what a tattoo was.
Right.
And then she was okay. But that was a story my dad used to tell. And, through the years when he was older, they were faded, and the sun had made them really just blotches of black on his arms, but they were always kind of his branding of his service time.
And you said that in one video on the Laffy, you think there's could be footage of your dad next to the destroyed turret. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's funny because earlier I'd mentioned how once in a while I would go to YouTube and just Google, Google search or YouTube search information or videos on the Laffy, and there's some old video documentation of it must have been wartime photographers doing video work around the ship, but when it was towed back, the ship was towed back to the Philippines for repairs. They showed some of the guys, like, in T-shirts and in their Navy jeans or whatever, hanging around. And it kind of pans by them. And one of the guys is my dad. And I kind of showed it to my mom quickly. And she said, yeah, that's him.
Huh.
So, so it didn't identify him, or it's just kind of a quick panning of the camera. and there he is. So 18-year-old kid from Hartford, Connecticut. Unbelievable.
Anything else you want to say before we shut this down?
No, again, I just maybe a thank you to you for doing this, and you're solidifying what my dad went through his whole life, and I think it can be in cardboard folders with, let's say, Hawaii, or it can be in some letters in a drawer, but
yep.
Nothing would have been on the internet, so to speak, for years to come without this discussion and without your research. So I want to thank you for digging into it. And I don't know, it's almost like my father found you through the eBay auction, and through that, I was blown away when I saw it that one day. It was, what was it, Ed Kycia, 2 men, a ship, and an apology or something. And I was like, geez, what am I getting into here? What am I reading about 2 men and a ship?
There you go.
And sure enough, it was what I thought it would be. And I'm very proud to be his son, and proud of what he did and what all the other veterans did. And I hope these young kids today that don't have respect for the flag and respect for the government and respect for the service and the police can kind of waken up and realize that these guys didn't just do this for kicks and giggles. They did this so we would have freedom in our lives someday. And don't burn the flag, don't stomp on the flag,
right?
Don't trash the government. Be proud of being an American and our past and what our forefathers did for us.
Yep, I definitely, I have utmost respect for anybody that has put themselves in harm's way. Definitely the generation that our fathers were a part of. My dad and I, even though we differed greatly in political opinions, could still make each other laugh our asses off at each other and about each other's, you would see that eureka moment where he would go, okay, yep. I see what you did there. You got me.
Yep. And the other thing you and I spoke about last time was there were 3 ways to do things when I grew up. There was the right way, the wrong way, and the Navy way.
Yep. And
we had to do things the Navy way.
Yep.
I mean, even to this day, I make my bed and I make sure there's no wrinkles.
Oh man.
in the bedspread. I mean, all those little things, but they were details.
Right.
And that was the Navy way.
Yep. All right, man. Well, I'm going to hit the stop record button here, but it has been a pleasure having you find me, having had our initial discussion about a week and a half ago, and then for you to take the time to sit down and do this. We struggled with Discord, couldn't get it to work, so I'm literally holding my phone up to the microphone, and hopefully the audio quality will work. But I want to thank you for reaching out to me and for giving me your time and giving folks a look into your dad's life and your life.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it as well, and I'll look forward to hopefully getting a copy of this so I can hold on to it.
Yeah, man. All right.
All right. Hey, peace, and thank you very much. We'll talk again.
Yep. Take care.
Okay. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.